A pair of F-15C Eagles are on an escort mission over Iraq as part of Operation Desert Storm on the 19th of January 1991 in the morning. Captain Craig Mole Underhill and Captain Cesarico Rodriguez are currently in the process of clearing the airways in anticipation of a formation of 36 aircraft that are responsible for striking targets in the vicinity of Baghdad. They are followed by waves of F-16 seconds that are descending with 2 0.000-pound general-purpose bombs as they make their runs. They discharge them, and the ordnance then falls directly onto the ammunition depots in Iraq. Massive explosions emerge from the wilderness. Anti-aircraft missiles are anticipated, and the F-16 seconds accelerate rapidly, simultaneously unleashing flares and chaff. However, the Iraqi Air Force has deployed 2 pairs of the most advanced fighters at their disposal, the MiG-29 Fulcrums, in place of missiles. The Iraqis have been maintaining their distance in search of an opportunity to strike as they are outnumbered. However, they are informed of the presence of 2 F-15 seconds, which are ideal targets. The Fulcrums in a pair are racing to intercept as it is their opportunity. Rico receives a message from his AWACS controller Mark White in the F-15. Rico, you have 2 antagonistic relationships. The first bearing is priced at 040 for 35, while the second bearing is priced at 340 for 65. Roger, we will select the 040. Rico selects the target that poses the greatest threat, and they proceed to engage. The F-15's front-facing radars detect the contact and display it on their screen. However, it is not the sole warning. A 29 is displayed on an additional screen. It is his radar warning receiver RWR, a device that informs him when hostile radars are able to detect him. MiG-29, I am currently undergoing painting. This is evident to me. Rico and Mole prepare for combat. The 2 pairs of 4th-generation fighters are in pursuit of one another and are en route to engage in a supersonic joust. Rico opts for an AIM-7 Sparrow missile. However, the Iraqis have a strategy. To avoid detection by the radar, they descend significantly below the F-15 seconds, utilizing the ground debris as cover. However, it is ineffective. Rico observes the solitary fuzzy contact as it is divided into 2 well-defined targets from his F-15. I comprehended. It is a clash of 2s. Rico selects one of the contacts and secures it. On the Fulcrum, the pilot observes his radar warning receiver illuminate with the shrill sound of a lock alert. However, the Iraqis have yet another advantage. The warnings abruptly cease and they bank to the side. Rico's finger is hovering over the weapon's release trigger when the radar contacts abruptly vanish from his screen. It is a blind area in the radar of the F-15. The MiG-29 seconds are utilizing this property to their advantage as objects that are traveling perpendicular to them are rendered invisible. Rico is irritated, but this is a well-established strategy. The enemy is detected on radar at a distance of 12 nautical miles. He secures it once more, but he refrains from firing. He is aware that the enemy will re-enter the blind area before the missile has the opportunity to capture them, and the AIM-7 Sparrow requires him to maintain lock throughout the missile's entire flight. The adversary vanishes once more. The MiG-29 seconds continue to navigate across the sky, causing the F-15's radar to continuously blink in and out on Rico's screen. Rico can observe their actions by maintaining a distance of 12 nautical miles. The Fulcrums are causing them to move further. Mark White supervises the situation at the AWACS. The F-15 seconds depart the airspace that Mark is responsible for, and in accordance with protocol, he transfers Rico and Mole to another AWACS controller. Rico and Mole continue their pursuit across the sky when their RWR abruptly emits an alarm and begins to accumulate detections in the vicinity. A complete field of S-125 Nava surface-to-air missiles has been established to safeguard Baghdad. The adversary is attempting to entice them into a killing field. Rico communicates with the strike force and observes the F-16 seconds conducting their sorties. The MiGs will undoubtedly intercept the F-16 seconds if he and his wingmen flee. He makes a bold decision. Until the assaults are completed, we will disperse the bandits. After that, we can depart from this location. They maintain their altitude and intentionally continue to advance toward the enemy ambush, thereby providing the strike force with the necessary time to strike. Every time the enemy radars monitor the F-15 seconds, the RWR clicks, and the frequency of these clicks increases by the second. However, the Iraqis continue to possess an ingenious strategy. They are aware that the projectiles are visible to the Americans. They are not the snare. They are the source of distraction. A third MiG-29 approaches the F-15 seconds from the left, obscured from the F-15's front-facing radar, and with its own radar disabled to avoid being detected by the F-15's RWR. Mark White continues to observe the evolving situation in his AWACS, despite the fact that the conflict is no longer within his jurisdiction. He promptly recognizes the danger as the new enemy approaches the scene. However, the F-15 seconds are not evading the incoming contact for some unknown reason. They continue to maintain a straight trajectory as the outlaw approaches within 18 nautical miles. White experiences anxiety. It is within the R-27 missile's effective range. The F-15 seconds have yet to respond from a distance of 16 miles. He contemplates uttering a statement over the radio, but he is concerned that disrupting them during a conflict could exacerbate the situation. After traveling for 15 miles, there has been no response. 14 kilometers. White makes the decision to take action. It is precisely at the correct moment. Rico immediately lowers his fuel tanks and accelerates toward the new contact, his wings obscured by vapor. He hears the call and responds immediately. The instant his nose points toward the incoming fulcrum, it is detected by his radar. Both missiles are within striking distance of each other at a mere 8 miles. Simultaneously, the Iraqi pilot, who is flying blindly without his radar, is informed that the Americans are directly in front of him. Rico appears on his screen after he activates his radar. The ominous 29 is now visible on Rico's RWR as a result of this act. The two state-of-the-art fighters are currently in communication and are en route at supersonic velocities. Rico selects the target on his display and secures it, but he does not fire. The rules of engagement require that all contacts detected within a 10-mile radius be visually identified in the event that they are a friendly F-117 Nighthawk. Rico maintains his reserve and instructs Mole to conduct a friend or adversary ID on the contact, despite the 29 on the RWR and the imminent threat. However, there is not enough time. The Iraqi seizes Rico's aircraft and confines him. Rico's RWR emits a lock alert and emits a loud shriek. He immediately flips over and dives, ejecting radar reflective conversation. However, it is ineffective. The RWR continues to shriek in his ear, warning him of his impending doom as he descends from 3,000 feet at the speed of sound. Rico's desperation to identify the adversary is evident in his erratic head movements. Mole operates an identification procedure with the assistance of intelligence aircraft, his finger hovering over the weapon's release trigger as he secures the target. The seconds seem to elapse indefinitely as they ultimately allow him to participate. He is granted permission to proceed and presses the button. In a plume of smoke, the AIM-7 Sparrow blasts off from beneath the F-15. Rico observes the smoke trail traveling between his tails as it streaks across the sky. He pursues the smoke trail with his eyes until he finally observes the MiG-29 directing its snout downwards toward him. However, it is never able to ignite. The Sparrow charges in and attacks it directly in the face. The MiG-29 disintegrates into a black smudge of smoke, accompanied by a massive explosion. Rico is left with oil and components. One splash. Rico experiences a sense of relief as he emerges from the descent at a mere 500 feet in altitude. However, White can observe that the situation is not yet resolved at the AWACS. The second group is located 10 miles to the north. Rico contemplates retreating as he surveys the heavens. The strike fleet of F-16 seconds is already on its way home, so there is no reason for them to remain in place. However, the enemy is too near for comfort. They could be shot from behind. They must engage in combat. The adversary is visible on Rico's screen as he turns to the north. He has an unobstructed shot to shoot it down as it is just beyond 10 miles. He implements an adversarial identification process. He selects the contact on his radar screen and secures the target. The Iraqi pilot in the enemy aircraft hears the lock alert and executes a swift, evasive maneuver. However, it is ineffective. As Rico's finger lingers over the button, his lock remains tightly secured. My scope illuminates him like a diamond. Can you repeat that? It transitions from a solid radar contact to a diamond, which indicates that he is amicable. The contact has been recognized as a benign aircraft by Mole's systems. Mole is overcome by a chilling sense of apprehension at that precise instant. Rico is certain that it is another MiG, but he must verify it with his own eyes. The two individuals prepare for the confrontation. Rico chooses to designate the target, and Mole prepares to fire the shot. Rico executes a sprint toward the adversary, who is directly overhead and approaching him. He maintains a low profile, allowing the hazard to approach him. He then stands up. Engines are operating at maximum capacity. The bogey's midsection is visible directly in front of him, but the bright sky obscures its identity. He maintains his F-15 inches his path until Rico's F-15 roars to within 50 feet of the bandit, and as it does so, he eventually gains a clear view of the enemy's top side, which is proudly adorned with the Iraqi flag and features green camouflage. Rico executes a wide left turn as he ascends above the MiG. He observes the MiG executing a flat left turn while maintaining his altitude by peering down through his canopy. Immediately, he recognizes an opening, and the elaborate shooter-eye formation is discarded. It is a combat. He flips over and exerts a significant amount of force on the stick, thereby piercing the MiG circle. Pushing the F-15 to its limits, he is pulverized by 10 grams of force. He observes the MiG roar past in front of him and executes a forceful left turn to pursue it. Rico observes the MiG departing, but he is aware of his superiority. The MiG descends, exchanging altitude for velocity. Rico pursues him, spiraling downward toward the desert floor as the paths of both aircraft intersect. Rico witnesses a MiG shriek as it passes through the merger. He is approaching. His blood is gushing from his cranium as he exerts himself to bring the fulcrum into his line of sight. He pulls extremely hard. Mole observes his leader engaged in a conflict with the adversary from afar and recognizes an opportunity. Rico, on the other hand, is feeling it. He owns this one. They roar past one another as he observes the MiG returning. He is almost in his possession. However, they are swiftly losing altitude and are unable to maintain this trajectory. Rico exerts himself to the fullest, overcoming a force of 10 grams. The magnificent sight of the fulcrum moving into his sights is visible through the crushing G's. Rico begins to pull an A9 Sidewinder, aiming ahead of the MiG for the greatest chance of impact. However, the Iraqi pilot observes this, and in a final, desperate effort, he flips over and accelerates toward the earth, pulling hard. Rico is prepared for the Iraqi to attempt an action, but he is taken aback by the MiG's direct descent into the dunes. He does not even consider following, and instead draws up to the left, allowing the MiG to continue. The Iraqi pilot begins to ascend, and is subsequently crushed by the extreme G forces as his aircraft descends toward the earth. When he operated the afterburner at full power, the windshield was filled with sand. His MiG was screaming as it exceeded its G limit. He was doing everything he could to lift the nose up. He had won. Mole was on his tactical right about 2 miles away. Rico could finally relax. We should head back to our quarters. Cesar Rico Rodriguez would accumulate 3 kills over the course of his service, which would place him as a tie for the highest number of MiG kills among pilots after Vietnam. We predict that both pilots will enjoy our movie. Today, they almost had a mishap. 2 warriors of the same generation. Yep. Unlike when our F-16 seconds have hot dogs for breakfast, watch the entire movie by clicking here.